Hello. Today's video I'm having a look at using the Couture Creations dies for foiling around apertures. So these dies, they come as a set of 6 and they come in various shapes. I've got the square ones here. What you've got, if I bring it up close to the camera, let me zoom the camera in. Yeah, zoom some more, but it's trying to focus on my arm. That's better. So you've got a broad foiling raised edge here, and then inside it rather than outside it you've got a cutting edge. There's no cutting edge on the outside here, there's only cutting edge on the inside. Okay, so that's what I've been looking at using, and I've done a few experiments, made a few cards. So I've got this one, I've used it to make an aperture to make a shaker card, and I've got some acetate and I've foiled on the acetate to put my sentiment in the middle of the shaker card. That's quite good fun. Okay, and then I've got this foiled detail around the edge. So that's using, well, not the biggest one, but the next size down. So that's using that one. And then for this card, I just wanted a small window to put an embellishment into with the foil around it and the matching foil on my sentiment. So I've used, I think, that size for that one. Okay, so that's that one. And then for this one, now this one isn't stuck together, so I've got to pick it up very carefully, and things are going to look a bit crooked. So this one, I've got the letters at the top in little windows, in little window apertures that are foiled around the outside. Okay, and that's been done with the smallest size one. So I'm going to show you how you use these dies. I'm going to be using the smallest one, and I thought about cutting this into my card background, but figuring out how to line these up was quite difficult. Well, in the end I decided, well, I'm not going to line them up, I'm going to do them sort of higgledy and piggledy, but still I needed to be very careful on the spacing. And I thought, I'm going to be making life really difficult for myself doing it on my background. So in the end I decided to make a panel with these in. Okay, and then I've cut it, and then I've got it backed on some black card, and then I've got a red foil mat around it, and that's just a piece of card around the outside. That's not hot foiling. Okay, so that's where I'm going with today's video. Okay, so let me put my card, oh, obviously I've then got my matching sentiment using one of the delightful sentiments that I folded there. Okay, so let's have a look at these. So I've got here, I've folded the first one. So there's my piece of card, and I've cut it a little bit bigger than I need, and I'll trim it down afterwards. So I've done one, and I've found with these, because it cuts out the middle as well, it can distort the card with the pressure, and it's better to have an extra layer of card behind it. So what I've done with this is I've cut my extra piece of card the same size, and I'm actually using the back piece of card as my shim when I'm doing the foiling, and then it's going to end up with little kind of embossed areas that match up. Let me just make sure the camera's focusing. I don't know if you can see that. Oh, there we go. Oh, light on it. Little embossed areas from being at the back behind the foiling that will match up exactly with where my little windows are, and that will work quite nicely for putting my letters in. So there. Okay, so let's have a look at how we have the GoPress Foil set up to use these. So I just need to put those to one side. Now there is a choice. I have here the Couture Creations metal conversion plate. It's a big hefty metal plate. It has metal conversion plate written on it here. Okay, and most of the time I use this with my cut, foil and embossed dies. and that's fine. But with these, I found it was too much pressure. The card I was trying to foil on was distorting a bit, and the extra pressure was actually dulling the foil. So instead, and it does say on the instructions that you can use the conversion plate or 2 thin metal shims. Now, I haven't got 2 thin metal shims, so I have improvised, and instead of using 2 thin metal shims, and excuse me, I'm just going to get an extra silicone mat I've got to pick this up because it's hot. There we are. So instead, I've got 2 pieces of 300 GSM card. Now that's the sort of card weight I make card bases from, quite sturdy card bases. So I've cut those exactly to the size of my grey area on my GoPress and foil, so those fit nicely there, and then I'm putting my thin metal shim on top of that. Okay, so you might need to experiment a little bit to find out what gives you the best results. Okay, but that's how I've got mine set up. Okay, and that needs to be nicely warmed up before I start trying to do my foiling. So let's get my set of dies back, and I'm doing this in a kind of a classic red and black colour scheme. I just want the small one, okay, for this. Now quite often when I'm using cut and foil dies, I cut the middle bit out of my foil. I don't need to do this with these because it's the middle bit's going to be waste anyway. Okay, so I'm just going to cut a piece of foil just a little bit bigger than the die, because I don't want too much extra foil around the outside, because there I will get over foiling that will need to be removed if I do. Okay, I'm just going to take that corner off to stick it out. Right, so I'm going to stick this down. As I say, I've made a deliberate decision that trying to get them straight was going to be difficult, so I'm going to purposefully do everything a bit wonky. So decide where I want my next one. They do need to be quite close together. My card is just under 15 centimetres wide. It's made from a piece of A4 card cut in half and cut down to a square, so I think that makes it 14.8 centimetres wide. And I'm using some low tack masking tape to tape this down. I'm going to tape it top and bottom. Okay, and I'm going to keep my 2 pieces of card together. So I've got my backing piece and my front piece together there. I'm keeping them exactly together so that the emboss that this one gets is in the right place. And I'm actually looking at this and deciding I want it a bit more crooked. I don't want it to look like it was meant to be straight and wasn't quite. I want it to look like it's supposed to be crooked. So I'm just going to turn that around a little bit. That's it. A little bit closer. So my foil is just about touching the previous piece of foil, but obviously you then got the edge of the die. So I'm putting that on there. Okay, as I say, I'm keeping these 2 pieces of card exactly together. If I don't manage to keep them exactly together and I end up with my embossing in the wrong place, I can always cut another piece of card. It's just that I thought, why have a shim that's going to get thrown away and then have another piece of card anyway? I might as well try and do both at the same time. So I've got that. So this needs to go onto the GoPress and foil to warm up. Okay, because I need the die to heat through. Okay, and there's no way I can line this up heating the die first. So I'm going to put it all onto the GoPress and foil like that. And I'm going to close the lid. Right. Closing the lid is important because A, it keeps everything in place, and B, it keeps the heating. And that goes back onto the base unit. which is over there, the base unit here, to warm up. Okay, so I'm going to need to wait for that to warm up. Okay, and then I'm going to roll it through my die cutting machine. So just bear with me while I do that. Okay, so I've run that through. Now you might find that you get scratches on your lid, or I might not have had enough pressure, so we're going to have a look. So let's see if this has foiled. Now if I very carefully peel at one edge, then I can have a look underneath, and if it hasn't, I can just tape it back down and have another go. But that edge looks really good. I'm just going to check the other one before I take all the tape off. Oh yeah, it's really good. Right, so I was just leaving the tape as a hinge and just lifting up, and there you can see that's foiled really nicely. I haven't got the camera pointing down far enough. There we are. Okay, so let's get my die out of the way here and my foil, and there we are. I've got my nice foil square, and the middle bit should just foil out. Now I need a bit of a wiggle. There we are. If it doesn't come out, then you can put the die on and just put it through your die cutting machine if it tapes in place, and that will fix that. So let's do that. That hasn't quite cut through in one corner. Or you can try and use a craft knife or a pair of scissors just to finish off the cut. Okay, so let me just find my cutting plates. So I'll take that down. I'm literally just going to run it through my die cutting machine here. There we are. That has now come out. I'm not quite sure where the square went. Well, I never. It was there. I know it was. It's probably fallen on the floor when I put the cutting plates down. So there I've got two of my squares. And I just need to foil the others. Okay, and then I can put my panel together. Okay, and then I also need my letters. So I'm using the cut and foil alphabet from Couture Creations, and I've got L, O, V and E. Could be any method you like, really. So these just need to be foiled. So let me grab a piece of card, and you do them in exactly the same way. Let me get a fresh piece of foil. And I'm going to do them down the strip of the card. I'm going to do them all in one go, but kind of in a long strip. I'm going to put a strip there. Doesn't matter what order you have them in, because they're going to all cut out. I shouldn't have cut my nails. I'm having trouble picking things up now. So take that to the edge. So we can just take that to the foil and the card. cutting side down. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if they're strange angles or anything, because they are going to cut out completely. I'm just going to trim that piece of card off, and then that'll need to, like the squares did, that needs to warm up before I actually run it through. So let me pop that on my GoPress Foil, and I am going to put a shim in with it. Just bear with me while I find a piece of scrap card for that. When I trim a piece of card to make a card blank, I keep the scraps for using as things like shims when I'm doing this. So, my GoPress Foil, my letters, my shim. Let me have a feel. Which end are they? This end. Right, there we are. So close the lid and leave it to warm up. I usually give it at least a minute. Okay, just to make sure everything is heated through. And then I'll need to get to run that through my die cutting machine. While I'm waiting, I can get the next one of these ready. So my green light's just come on, but I still think that needs a bit longer to warm up. So that is ready to go as soon as I finish with the one that's on there now. So as I say, just bear with me while I run it through. Okay, so I've run that through, and as you can see, it has cut through, nearly cut through both layers of the card. So having that extra shim, but having the thinner plate, helps protect your lid from getting too deep scratches in it. So let's so now that I've taken that off, I'm going to pop this again, both layers, onto the GoPress Foil to be warming up. So let's untape this and see how we've done. Right, I'll keep my pieces of tape to use for the next thing. So that's my shim. So that, as I say, those have nearly completely cut through. Well, the O has. And these are my letters. So obviously I'm foiling onto black card, so from the back it doesn't look like I've got anything in there. So let's put those to one side. And get my pokey tool. And push the letters out. And sometimes the foil stays in the die. That's quite handy. So that's foiled quite nicely. There's a little bit of overfoiling on it, if I can get the camera to zoom in on that. I've got a piece of card behind it. That might help. Zoom in. Oh, there we are. So you can see at the bottom there, I've got some overfoiling rather than just a nice neat line. So I can remove that with a sand eraser. Now when I've got something like this, I actually do find a flat sand eraser. Something like this works best. So a flat rubber rather than the Couture Creations Creative Detailer, which is great for other areas. But for this, let me just point the camera right down here so you can see what I'm doing. That's it, and get it to focus. And zoom a bit more. There we go. Am I at full zoom? I think I am. Right, so for this, I'm just going to get those out from underneath my piece of card. So for this, because the foiling I want is pressed into the card, I've got quite a deep emboss because I've had that extra shim. I can just gently go over the top with a flat rubber. And it will only catch the foil that I don't want. So I've done that bottom there. And I think there's some on the top corner. I'm going to see if you can actually see that. So I'm just going to go on the top corner here. I'm keeping the rubber flat. And on that corner there. Okay, so that's removed, I think, most of the overfoiling. Those bits off my piece of card here. Let me bring that back up to the camera. Oh, oops, sorry. That's a good view, but let's focus. There we are. I've got a little bit left, just on that outside edge. Now let me see if I can get rid of that. I can see it now. I've got the light on it. Let me bring that over there. That's better. So it's just this bit here. I think that's got it. There we are. So there we are. So that's taken the overfoiling off. So that's my V. Let's poke out the others before I forget. I shouldn't have cut my nails. I really shouldn't. Right. Zoom the camera back out. Okay, so I'm going to, just from the front, poke the E out. I've got the camera a bit low. Just take that up a bit. Take my E out. Again, it's left the foil behind. And again, some little bits of overfoiling. There we are. Again, those will rub off quite easily with a flat rubber. So let me just do that and I'll just show you the result. This way you can't see it. There. So just with the flat of the rubber. And if I have got some along the edge I want to take off, I can use my creative detailer. And this is just, it's a spinning rubber. It's battery operated, just you press the button and the rubber spins. And it just makes it really easy to take foil off. It's great for going around the edges. There, so that one's done. Right, so that's how you foil and clean up your letters. Okay, the other square has had plenty of time to heat up now, so I'm going to roll that through. So just bear with me while I do that. I haven't zoomed the camera back out. There we are. So let's check on this third square. So I'm going to slide that off. Take this off. Here are the foil. I think that square will just wiggle out on this one. Okay, so there we are. It's my third square. Now I can see, actually on the one I did previously, I've got some overfoiling on that inside edge. Let me again zoom the camera. Oh, it's boring me keep zooming in and out, but I want you to actually make sure you can see what I'm talking about. So, there. I wiggle that. You see there's some foil around the inside edge of that square? So the creative detailer is the perfect tool for removing that. So if I can actually get my camera, I'm going to put the card down because it makes this less noisy to use. So let me get that, and I'm doing that. Oh, I want to be focused on there. So you can't see it because, let me, if I turn it, can you? So I'm going to be going along here. There's a little bit of foiling just on the inside of the square. So I'm going to use my creative detailer. Just gently go along that edge. And then if I bring that back to the camera, hopefully you can see. There we are. So the overfoiling there has now gone. A little bit on the bottom edge, on this edge. Let me do that. That's on this edge. So I'm going to go along. Just go along with it. Set it going and go along. And there we are. Okay, so let's get back to the card we were making, because I've got all the bits I need now. You've seen how to do the squares. These I have managed to keep lined up, but if I haven't, you know, just use another piece of card. So that's that. So let's bring my card back. So once you've foiled, all your squares, and you stick the two pieces of card together, and make sure that they're trimmed so you haven't got any extra bits sticking out. And then it's just a case of sticking your letters. Let me grab a letter. I can't pick them up. Right, so you've got your letters. It's just a case of sticking your letters carefully in each of your apertures, and then, as I say, I've matted it onto some red card. Okay, this is going to go as a panel sort of at the top of the card. It could go at a bit of an angle. There's enough room for that, so I may well do that. So I'm doing everything at angles. Okay, and then down the bottom I've just used a nesting die set. I've cut a heart out of some red foil card. I've used one of the Delightful Sentiments and used the same red foil, and I've just cut a little flag, really just to go behind this because otherwise it was merging with the background. Okay, so that just needs finishing off. I'll probably put this on some foam pads. There goes my sentiment again. And that will be the finished card. So that just leaves the sentiment for this one, because this is folding exactly the same way. Obviously, because this is in a square, I started off with my paper, and this is a Couture Creations paper from the Butterfly Garden collection. I started with it a bit oversized, and I tried very hard to get this exactly lined up and in the middle of my square of pattern paper, and I didn't quite succeed, so I was quite glad I'd left myself enough extra to be able to trim. And then you just need to make sure you mount it up on some foam pads so that you actually get some height. And then I've used cut sequins underneath, and literally put your foam pads on, put your sequins in the middle, and then secure it down with your foam pads, and then that traps your sequins in place. But let me just go over foiling on the acetate for you, because I don't often do that, so bear with me. So on my GoPress, I don't need my metal plate anymore, so I need to take that off. Again, I've got a spare silicone now. I'm just going to use to pick that up. And the cardboard never seems to feel as hot, or at least it probably cools down so quickly. So that just goes there. Okay, I've got, now I think I've got, that was left over from the piece of acetate I used. No idea what weight acetate this is. And this is actually the packaging from some dies that I bought. So I'm going to have a go at foiling on there. Okay, and I've got my die somewhere. So I like to use a magnet to position my die. So I'm going to put my sentiment in the middle of my piece of acetate, and I've got I've put a line on the back of this sentiment with an alcohol marker to show me where the middle of it is, and that needs to be a straight, that's sort of needs to be vertical, and that helps me get it straight on things. So I can actually, I just make sure it's roughly in the middle and that line is straight up and down. And I'm going to put a stamp press magnet that's covered in some masking tape, so I've got a handle on it. So put that on the back, and then that doesn't move. And then I'm going to open my GoPress. I'm going to turn that upside down so the magnet's on the top. I'm going to line this up with a corner here so that I've got a reference point. I'm going to hold the hot foil stamp down through the acetate, and then I can take that off out the way, and then that can warm up. So that goes back on the base to warm up. I'm going to use this nice bright pink foil for this one. I can find the end. we go. Okay, now I won't want it quite that long. I'm just going to grab this as a reference to see how much foil I actually need for this sentiment. And what I tend to do is just put a light crease where I think I can trim it. Take the corners off. That helps prevent overfoiling around the edges, so particularly at the corners. So I've now got a piece of foil. It's a bit high, I think. Too much that way. So let's actually take a bit off of there as well. I'm going to take that bit off the top. And then retrim my corners. And make sure I've still got it big enough. Yeah, I think so. Right. So I'll put my card back one side and my foil. Okay, I'm going to need some shims. Let's grab those. Now, obviously, I've had lots of practice, and obviously this isn't the first piece of acetate I've foiled. So I think I'm going to need 4 thicknesses of card shim. Okay, I'm going to just go for it. If I was doing a piece of card, or I've got a spare small offcut of acetate, I'd probably do a test with a small piece of foil. But I haven't. Well, I could trim a little bit off it, but I'm just going to go for it. Okay. So I've got that. So this is nice and warm. So let me just put my shims there. I'm going to put my foil on my hot foil stamp. I'm going to put my acetate back into the same corner. I'm just going to make sure I've not got any dust on it. Back into the same corner I had it in before. Something on that side. Let's foil that side. I can always clean the back afterwards. Okay. That there. And I'm going to put a piece of tape down on the white edge here so that can't slip about. Then I'm going to put my shims on. Close my lid. Move bits and pieces off my die cutting machine. And then I'm going to roll it through. And as I'm rolling it through, I'm going to think about whether or not it feels like it normally does when it falls correctly. Because acetate is very thin. So I can just feel a tiny bit of extra resistance, which is probably about right. I have quite a lot of extra resistance. So I might have too many shims, we might have lots of overfoiling. But the great thing with acetate is actually, because it's see-through, you can see whether or not it's foiled before you actually move it. I'm just going to make sure the tape's stuck down. So, now, I don't know if you can see this. Let me see if I can pick this up. Oh, actually, I think you can see this. So let me zoom in and just move this out. So you can see through the acetate that it's actually foiled. Okay, so if I couldn't see a good impression from the hot foil stamp, then I could add an extra shim and roll it through again before I move it. Okay, but that looks like that's full quite nicely. Let's pick that up. Okay, so I'm going to peel this off. There. Let me put some white card behind. There we are. So that would be ready to go in the centre of your aperture. Okay, so there we are. So this video goes with a blog post about these cards, and you'll find that on the Couture Creations blog. There'll be a link in the video description. So if you scroll down, there'll be a link there to the blog post on my blog. It's also will also be on the Couture Creations blog. Okay, and there we are. So just to quickly recap, we've got shaker card. I did use 2 layers of foam pads on that one. You have to make sure there's no gaps for the sequins to fall out. I've got my one with my little apertures and my letters in them. And if you haven't got the forward letters, you can just, you know, cut some letters if you've got an alphabet from some red card, and that would look great as well. The background on this, by the way, is an embossing folder, and I've used kind of a glitter medium on it to create the background. So that's that. And then this one, well, I've done an aperture, I've not put any acetate or anything in it, it just shows through to the backing paper that's also showing around the edge. There we are. Okay, thank you for watching.